We never knew what happened to Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man. I'm Scott and welcome to Will Like TV. We hope you enjoy this take on The Amazing Spider-Man, as this concept story was written by Will Act himself. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification to support this channel. Let's get started. In this take, we're going to conclude Uncle Ben's killer's presence by making our own twist of the story, starting from making changes and cancellations of what would have been The Amazing Spider-Man 3, continuing into our made-up concept of an Amazing Spider-Man 4 story. Neither movies exist, but to make this story make sense we had to use the concept of The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and carry on from there. In The Amazing Spider-Man 3, we were going to get a story of Flash Thompson becoming Agent Venom and other build-ups to an eventual Sinister Six. In our take, we will make Spider-Man defeat Agent Venom and keep the symbiote, carrying on into our made-up Amazing Spider-Man 4 story, completely ignoring the Sinister Six. Please be aware that from here on out this is not the original story that was planned by Sony or Marvel. We just wanted to be creative with our ideas since the franchise was cancelled. Let's continue. In our twisted version of the Amazing Spider-Man 3 story, Peter will have already worked at the Daily Bugle and developed his crush on Mary Jane Watson while simultaneously mourning Gwen's death. And at the end of our Amazing Spider-Man 3, Peter will have defeated Agent Venom and kept the black suit, but the offspring of the black suit will remain roaming the alleyways of New York City, giving us two symbiotes at the same time in our TASM 4 story. We begin our Amazing Spider-Man 4 story with Peter finishing his search for Uncle Ben's killer in the black suit, dealing with his loss of Gwen Stacy. It's been a while since their death, but for some reason it's now bothering Peter more than ever. He's beginning to be more angry about it. We cut to a scene of him at the Daily Bugle speaking to John Jonah Jameson. We then introduce Eddie Brock coming in as Peter notices that Eddie has a recent photo of someone identical to that of Uncle Ben's killer.
Where did you take that photo?
Wow, Parker, you're a bit nosy today. You barely talk to me.
Peter grabs Eddie Brock's arm in aggression.
He's a wanted man, and if you have info, I need it.
Eddie replies.
I took it near an alleyway somewhere yesterday during a store robbery.
Peter snatches the photo and quickly walks off in frustration. We cut to Peter in the black suit investigating the area the photo was taken in. He then finds a dead body and a bullet, implying that Uncle Ben's killer is still murdering people. Peter gets upset and the police are called. He soon notices a robber pointing a gun at a nearby pedestrian. The robber then catches the full force of a trash can thrown by a frustrated black-suited Spider-Man, nearly killing him as a cop shows up to assist. The cop laughs at the criminal nearly suffering to his death as law enforcement in New York trust and like Spider-Man a lot. Peter is noticeably becoming more aggressive and harsh from the effects of the black suit. The police officers come over to help as the victim looks at Spider-Man in fear, leaving safely. Peter then goes home and gets into an argument with Aunt May. She manages to calm him down. She tells Peter to find someone to talk with and go out on a date with someone new. While Peter still mourns Gwen Stacy, he realizes he finds relief when talking to Mary Jane. He loosens up and takes her advice. They go on a date for the first time. We cut to Peter having a conversation with MJ. They become more intimate with each other, leading up to a romantic kissing scene. Peter then says to her,
Did you know I met Spider-Man before?
Mary Jane replies,
He actually saved my life before.
Peter gets confused.
Really?
I was about to get hit by Rhino's missile with my friends, but Spider-Man blocked it just before it hit us. I don't think he realized it, but he's amazing.
Peter looks confused and satisfied at the same time, realizing he saved the new love of his life without even knowing it. Next, we cut to a scene of the cops chasing a vehicle, revealing Uncle Ben's killer as the driver. He then pulls up to a warehouse similar to that of the one in 2002 Spider-Man, where Dennis Caradian fell to his death in fear of Spider-Man's attack. The cops storm inside as the man tries to find his way out. But he finds no luck in doing so. The police surround him as he is held at gunpoint. He then tries to grab his weapon, but the police immediately fire shots. With multiple gunshot wounds in his chest, Uncle Ben's killer falls face front into a puddle of water. We then see the offspring of the Venom symbiote that has been roaming around the city. It seeps into the gunshot wounds of the suspect. Carnage has now been born. The police walk up to the body and realize he's still moving. An officer reaches down to put him in handcuffs, and we see Uncle Ben's killer transform into a terrifying, red symbiotic beast. A massacre happens to every cop in the warehouse, and it becomes a bloodbath. One cop makes it out, barely alive, calling for massive backup. Reporters then arrive at the scene, along with Eddie Brock, who is sneaking into a dangerous area. We cut back to Peter and Mary Jane as she is sleeping on his side. Peter's spider sense goes off and he notices the news, showing Uncle Ben's killer at large. Peter immediately leaves MJ and swings over to the scene, now having a crowd of reporters and people watching. Spider-Man arrives in the area and notices Eddie Brock going inside an area that isn't safe. He immediately stops him and Eddie doesn't listen. Spider-Man aggressively takes Eddie back to a safe location and Eddie pushes Spider-Man. Eddie yells, "You idiot, that would have been my next paycheck, this is important stuff." Black Spider-Man web shoots Eddie's camera and smashes it. Spider-Man says, "I just saved your damn life, stay out of places you shouldn't be and go home, this isn't the time to piss me off." Peter swings away as Eddie develops a hatred for Spider-Man. We cut to the warehouse as Peter comes across the killer of Uncle Ben in human form. Peter unmasks himself and says, "Stop right there, remember me? You killed my uncle, and you're gonna pay." The man then runs up to Peter and they fight. Peter suddenly takes a massive blow to the ground as we cut to a fully red and bloodlust Carnage. Peter puts his mask back on and dodges Carnage's attacks. Carnage then delivers a massive blow to Peter in the black suit, injuring him badly. Soon, Carnage jumps out the window, nowhere to be found. The next day we see Peter is fully healed due to the black suit's regeneration ability. He's having a conversation with a frustrated Mary Jane because of his disappearance after they fell in love. As she walks with Peter to the Daily Bugle, Peter explains to her that the killer of his uncle is still at large and he is trying to help find him. As they get closer, we see an angry Eddie Brock coming outside of the building.
Peter, I need you to help me expose Spider-Man.
What happened?
That menace got me fired, and he broke my camera.
Eddie slowly recognizes MJ and says,
Hey, I know you. I saw you at that time your boyfriend died and Spider-Man wasn't there. Maybe you can help me as well.
Peter then gets aggressive again and pushes Eddie back. Leave her out of this. Whatever your problem is, it's on you, not with me and definitely not with her.
Spider-Man's a hero. He saved me. All you care about is your stupid paycheck. Back off.
Eddie looks at Peter with rage and walks away. Peter turns to MJ and realizes they have more in common than he thought. He says, "You've met that guy before?"
I encountered him at the time Electro took over the city. My ex was shocked to death and he died. Eddie was just there taking a photo of everything while I needed help, but I've moved on. You make me feel safe, Peter.
Peter looks at MJ and hugs her. Suddenly his spider sense goes off again and he looks around. He tells MJ he has to go. "Oh no, my boss is gonna fire me if I don't get in pictures of Spider-Man. I have to go!"
See you, Peter.
Peter leaves and puts on his suit and swings away to stop a quick robbery. After the incident, Peter tries to call Aunt May and she doesn't answer. He gets concerned and swings home, coming to a destroyed entrance with remnants of carnage. Peter screams in anger as he tries to call Mary Jane and she doesn't pick up the phone either. He again sees the news as Mary Jane and Aunt May are being held hostage by Carnage in Times Square. We see Peter drop his phone and look up in determination, fearlessness, and strength. He rips off his clothes into the fearsome black suit and swings off, getting ready to save the last two people that mean the most to him. Peter arrives at the scene with a massively destructive Carnage. He spots Aunt May, but Mary Jane is nowhere to be found. Peter Webb shoots a car and launches it at Carnage with all his might. The two face off, as May calls for Spider-Man's help. Peter struggles to fight Carnage as he is insanely powerful. Soon the SWAT team shows up and shoots a rocket launcher at Carnage. The police try to help Spider-Man as much as they can. Carnage hits it out of the way as Peter Webb shoots it, redirecting the projectile directly at Carnage. Feeling invincible, Carnage is now subdued by the explosion and temporarily injured. Aunt May calls for Spider-Man's help, and he quickly rescues her safely away from the area. We then hear a massive scream from Mary Jane hanging from a building in the red goo of Carnage's symbiotic waste. It gets weaker as Mary Jane gets closer to falling stories high in the air. Peter immediately swings up top as Carnage throws multiple symbiotic projectiles. Peter is so determined to save MJ that he dodges every single thing that Carnage throws at him. A nearby SWAT officer throws a chain of flashbangs and shouts, "Hey Spidey, heads up." Spider-Man immediately web shoots the flashbangs and throws them at Carnage. They go off as Carnage suffers from the loud noises. We cut back to Peter in a hurry to save Mary Jane as she gets more and more closer to falling to her death. Explosions go off as things get intense. The black suit struggles to stay on Peter due to the heat bothering it. But Peter manages to follow through. Just as Peter gets to MJ, she falls. We get a similar visual of Mary Jane falling like we do with Gwen in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 in slow motion. The camera zooms into Spider-Man's face as we get an emotional flashback of him and Gwen Stacy, reminding Peter that this is his second chance. A second chance to save the love of his life. We cut back to Mary Jane falling, and we get an amazing heroic stunt scene, just like when Peter saves Gwen from falling in Spider-Man 3. Massive explosions go off from the destruction of Carnage. Spider-Man web shoots at MJ and grabs her tight. He successfully saves MJ as they land safely on the ground in front of a slowly moving Carnage. Carnage is now injured due to the fire, giving Peter in the black suit an advantage. However, the black suit is being affected by the flames as well. But Peter still remains pissed. MJ hides behind Peter as he looks Carnage dead in the eye. Peter knows he must stop this once and for all. We then see leakage of gasoline around the area showing more and more fire. Peter walks up to Carnage, speaking in rage.
"You killed my uncle. You killed all those cops and innocent people. You tried to kill the people that mattered most to me. But this time, I'm gonna make sure you never hurt anybody again."
Peter is now more aggressive than ever. He's ready to kill. He goes on a rampage of punching Carnage, hitting him with broken car doors, tires, glass, and chairs. The fire spreads more. Peter then looks at the disfigured face of Uncle Ben's killer within the symbiote, realizing what the black suit has turned him into. He falls to his knees and realizes it was time to get rid of the suit. Mary Jane screams for Spider-Man as a gas truck is about to go off from the fire. Carnage then bursts into flames due to the gases spread around him and dies, concluding to the killer of Uncle Ben. Peter grabs MJ and swings off as things get hot. The black suit melts off of Peter, revealing the original Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit. Peter and MJ land on a roof. Now that the black suit is off, Peter becomes more emotional and less angry. A masked Spider-Man cries as he gets on his knees wishing he could have saved Gwen like he did Mary Jane. Mary Jane walks over to Spider-Man and says,
"I know."
As he cries, Spider-Man says, "Know what?" Mary Jane then calls him Peter and he looks up at her as she takes off his mask, wiping away his tears. Mary Jane cries with him. She says,
"I understand now. You were being a hero this whole time. I thought you were ditching me."
Peter mourns Gwen Stacy for the last time. "I could have saved her. I failed." Mary Jane grabs Peter's arms and says,
"You may have not saved her, but you saved me. That's what she would have wanted. It's what she always would have wanted. For you to be happy and a great hero."
Peter relaxes and looks at Mary Jane with ease. He tells her, "I love you. I promise to not let anything happen to you like it did her." They both kiss, and Peter puts his mask back on. Mary Jane is swung to safety as Spider-Man moves on from his past, with his new lover, Mary Jane Watson. The next day Peter wakes up happier than ever and we get a scene of him taking Mary Jane for a swing. Peter lands her in a private area as he gets a notification of crime. He tells her something is up and he has to go. She smiles. We get a similar scene of Mary Jane kissing Spider-Man half-masked like Spider-Man 1, but this time he isn't upside down. He swings off as we get a happy ending for Peter's journey and love life. We then cut to an end scene of a frustrated Eddie Brock walking down an alley screaming and kicking a dumpster. He's lost everything and blames Peter and Spider-Man for it. A robber then comes up to him and holds him at gunpoint as Eddie begs him not to shoot in fear. The seemingly destroyed symbiote that melted off of Peter at the final battle of Carnage comes out of a dumpster in the alley and bonds to Eddie Brock. The robber shoots Eddie and he falls to the ground. Eddie quickly transforms into a monstrous Venom, killing the robber, roaring aggressively into the camera, giving us a now set up Amazing Spider-Man 5 story. And that concludes our story. Since we never had a real idea of what happened to Uncle Ben's killer in the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, we got creative by taking the story of the Amazing Spider-Man 3, changing the ending of that story and making a sequel to that changed ending, making Ben Parker's killer return as Carnage while also setting up Eddie Brock's Venom as the next villain if we were to do a sequel to this story. Let us know what you think of the story. Remember to like and subscribe to Will Act TV. I'm Scott, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.